Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tip Today. 1800 938 007. That's a free phone number. Won't cost you to make a call. Leanne is producing today. Coming up on the show, I'll be speaking to Cllr Liam Browne live in studio in just a few moments' time. We'll be hearing from a Tipperary farmer who was in attendance at the Mercusor protest in Athlone. 36 years on from the closure of the sugar factory in Thurles. We'll speak about the impact of that. Auto enrolment, still some confusion out there about that, and we'll do our best to tease it out. Our legal eagle, John Lynch, will be with us. All of that and more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tipfm.com. Look at the front pages and right across the newspapers today, images of Jessie Buckley celebrating big time after her Golden Globes success. On the Indo, she's there with Paul Mescal, and they're looking extremely happy indeed. The main story on the Indo today: the ministers are to rush through laws that will allow companies misusing AI to be hit with tens of millions of euro in fines. The Irish Examiner, again dominated by a photograph of Jessie Buckley and her co-star in Hamnet, Paul Mescal. The lead story on the Examiner today: more than 150 people were stuck on trolleys for 24 hours plus in overcrowded hospitals as they waited for a bed yesterday, including 28 people over the age of 75 amid worsening conditions in emergency departments. Also on the Examiner today, we're reading that the prosecution in a murder trial in Cork has alleged that on New Year's Day 2023, 28-year-old Brazilian woman Bruno Frasica was strangled by a Brazilian man with whom she had previously been in a relationship with. The Irish Times, and this time the photograph is of Jessie Buckley, all on her own and looking rather radiant as well. The lead story on the Times today: former Garda Commissioner Drew Harris has said prosecuting the IRA men who killed his RUC father in 1989 would make little difference given the short sentences they would receive under the Belfast Agreement. Also on the Times, tens of thousands of pro-government demonstrations rallied in Tehran yesterday as the Iranian regime sought to downplay the continuing nationwide protest movement. And also there's an interesting one on the Irish Times, because we often discuss cycling on this programme, and people are very divided about cyclists and cycling. But the story by Ray Manna tells us that cyclists have become a nightmare in Dublin, a judge said yesterday, as he reduced a €50,000 damages award by 80% to a cyclist who suffered a brain injury when he and a motorbike collided. But Judge James O'Donoghue decided that the injured cyclist was mainly responsible for the accident. And finally, a look at the Irish Daily Mail. And there's a rather disturbing story on the front page of the Mail today. 9 inmates were released from jail by accident over the last 3 years, and the prison service has refused to say if they were reapprehended. So let's look at what's making headlines today. Do you want to comment on any of that? If you do, you can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. Now, Cashel-based Councillor Liam Browne recently took to social media to share a rather stark post about the reality of living in Ireland, and he joins me in studio now. Good morning to you, Liam.
Good morning, Fran. Good morning to listeners.
And good to see you today. Why did you decide to do this, Liam, and why did you decide on these particular angles on what's happening in Ireland today?
Well, Fran, as a councillor, I try to look beyond what's just happening at council level in Tipperary and look at the wider what's happening in society in general. And let's be honest about it, the biggest thing that people are talking about at the moment, and people call it the cost of living crisis. I don't call it cost of living anymore, Fran, it's cost of existence. Because I think there's an awful lot of people out there who feel like they're just barely existing, they're not living. And I wanted to contrast it from the end of year figures by the government, who claim that the economy is doing very well, and they're doing that on the basis of GDP figures and employment figures. And I had a quick look at them. The GDP last year is up by over 3%. Unemployment figures are less than 5%. But a lot of people don't really understand those figures and what they actually mean. Like, GDP growth will tell you what multinationals are doing. It'll tell you how big businesses, how much they've grown by, how much exports have grown by. But that money is not money in people's pockets. The money in people's pockets are what really tell you how an economy is doing. And I looked at the inflation figures, and we're constantly listening to the rate of inflation. Oh, it's going down. When the rate of inflation goes down, it doesn't mean prices go down. It means prices go up a little bit slower, but they're still going up. So when you contrast the figures in GDP levels against with where I got the figures, which were the Central Statistics Office figures, and I looked at three particular sides of it, which was the cost of living, or cost of existence as I call it, the housing system, and how the housing system is now designed to fail as far as I'm concerned. And then one particular one, which was the age that people were beginning to leave home at, because that's a very important figure for how people begin their life and how they go on their life. And all of those figures were very stark as far as I'm concerned. They were very scary.
Let's go back to the cost of living then, and you have some figures for us there. Would you just give us some of the meat, for example, and how that has increased over the last while?
Well, yeah, the price of beef has gone up by almost €5 per kilogram. So it's not only the price of beef, say, on the table in a restaurant, but this is the price of mince meat. This is the price of
basics
of basic foodstuffs that are made with meat, like, as well. So when that has gone up by the amount it's gone up in so quickly, it means a lot of people who had beef as a staple food can now not afford it anymore. And it's also then felt when you go out to restaurants and when you go out to pubs and carveries and stuff. I mean, if you went into most carveries, the standard roast beef dinner was what was mainly sold in this country. A lot of people can't afford that anymore. But like I said, it goes down from not just going out, but actually sitting at home and wondering what you buy for your dinner. So that's gone up. The price of rent, Fran, is just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. We all know that now. The average rent in Tipperary is almost €1,500 per month. If you take somebody who's on a minimum wage, that's nearly 60% of their wages.
Yeah, I was speaking to an auctioneer yesterday who told me in Clonmel we're talking about €2,000.
Well, that's what I'm saying. 2,000 in a place like Clonmel. I'm talking about the average. Yeah. So you're talking about villages in Tipperary, which don't have villages don't have big factories.
So how do you save then?
Well, this is it. You're asking people, like, it's terrible to think that somebody who wants to buy a house is probably paying more in rent than they would pay in a mortgage. Yeah. Where they could get the house, but they can't get the house without a 10 or 15% deposit, which is, you take the average price of a house in Cashel is close to €300,000. So you're being asked to come up with a deposit of €30,000 to €45,000 before you can even buy the house. You can afford the house, but you can't afford the deposit. So it's a kind of a cycle that you can't get off, but it's actually hurting you. And the extra money you're spending in rent, and there's a few things, and we're going to have to be a bit controversial here and face up to these, Fran. We're being told that we're going to address the housing crisis by building more houses. We're building about 30 to 33,000 houses last year, but 78,000 people came into the country. So I mean, if you're bringing in 78,000 extra people into the country when you don't have enough houses in the first place, and you're not building enough houses for the extra ones coming in, well, obviously the housing crisis is going to get worse again. When the housing crisis gets worse, the price of rent gets worse. So that goes up. So again, you create another big gap of affordability. You talk to pubs, you talk to restaurants. I mean, we just had a very quick discussion yourself before we came on about yourself in the music industry.
I mean,
you can now feel it when you go out, even over the holiday periods. Like, there was times when you go out pretty much every night over Christmas, and there was people out every night. Now there's not. But that's not the scary part. The scary part is they're not out next Friday night, and they're not out next Saturday night, and they're not out next Sunday night either. So, I mean, people literally do not have enough money in their pocket.
I was playing for dancing in Moyne last Saturday night, and we came back through Thurles, and I couldn't get over it. About 1:30, 1:45. Thurles was so quiet on a Saturday night.
Yeah, I was doing something before Christmas in around Halloween, and I was working on one Sunday night. I came back through Cashel on Sunday night at 11 o'clock, and it may as well be 4 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, because there literally wasn't a sinner on the street. But Fran, going back to the data and going back to the cost and going back to the money in people's pockets, something that really struck me this year, and it's only happened a week and a half ago, but the first week of the new year, a lot of the national politicians, a lot of the national political parties were putting out on their social medias the increases in welfare payments, the increases in carers allowance payments, the increase in work and family payments, but there was nothing for workers. There was no increase. There was nobody lauding the increase that workers were going to have. And the reality is if you work nowadays, Fran, it's actually going to cost you more since the start of the year to work and go to work than it did at the end of last year, because you've got an increase in fuel prices. You've got an increase in insurance prices. You've got an increase in the auto enrolment. I heard you speaking about that. You're going to talk about that again. So if you haven't had a pension and you're on a middle income, you now have to put money into an auto enrolment pension, even though you're paying PRSI. So we're hitting people who had the ability to spend money, which was working people, and we're taking that money out of their pocket because we're taking more of them in taxes, we're taking more of them in fuel costs, we're taking more of them in carbon costs. We're lauding the fact that we're giving extra money to people who are not working. And don't get me wrong, the problem with this argument is someone will accuse me of punching down on people who aren't working. I'm certainly not. People who aren't working also deserve to live, and they also deserve an increase. But you cannot keep taking money off working people and putting into people who don't work and putting into housing for people who don't work when people who do work can't afford to house. Because what's going to happen, Fran, is, and we can see it ourselves, the best and the brightest, the best educated, the ones who we've put money into are going to leave the country.
Well, they are leaving.
And that's the controversial thing we say. People who don't immigrate tend to not have college degrees. They tend to be in middle income jobs. They tend to be in retail, this sort of thing, and that they continue working. But they can't afford to live in those jobs, and that's very, very unfair on them. But people who do have transferable skills, people who have, academic qualifications, they have the opportunity. It's almost like going back to famine times. I mean, people thought the poor immigrated in the famine. The poor didn't immigrate in the famine. The ones who immigrated in the famine were the middle class and the rich, because they were able to afford to immigrate. And that's what's happening now. So we're spending an awful lot of money educating young nurses, educating young doctors, educating engineers, educating teachers. And then we're here and we have big gaps in the education system where we can't afford teachers. We don't have enough teachers in primary or secondary level.
We don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough surgeons.
Why don't we have enough of them, Fran? Like, where are they? Where are they going, and why are they going?
And why can't we entice them back properly?
We can't entice them back, Fran, because, like I said again, if they can't afford to live, if you've got a good job in Australia, if you've got a good job in London, and you can afford to live in those places, and you have better opportunities, you feel, to move on in your life, do you continue to stay out there and do that? Or do you say, I'm going to come back to Ireland where every single penny I make in my wages, or 50% of my wages, is going to be put into paying rent for a house that I can never afford? They're not going to do that.
And almost everybody is in agreement at this stage that target of 300,000 houses by 2030
it's a joke. It's a joke, Fran. Let's call it for what it is. It's an absolute joke. It's a figure plucked out of the sky that you said, let's say this. And what it's designed to do, and this really annoys me, it's designed to get past the next election, which has to be in 2029. Why did the government always pick a date which is beyond the next election?
Well, that's politics, isn't it? That's the nature of our politics.
And this is it. So 2030. So, we're a bit slow coming up to 2029. But if you give us another 5 years, we will go on long. The simple fact is...
And then we take away the annual target as well. So in terms of measurement... Even,
of course, that's the whole point. We know we cannot ramp up that quick. You go into, I sat in council meetings yesterday. I sit in council meetings every month. We know we don't have the capacity to ramp up houses that quick. We know we don't have the capacity in Irish Water. We know we don't have the capacity in the ESB network system. So why do we have a housing minister coming out and telling us that we're going to build houses at this level when we know we can't? We know we want to. But worse, Fran, that's something that we can't get to. But something we can do is we can stop the inflow of non-critical workers into the country, which is exacerbating the problem at the moment. I have no problem with inward migration. I want people to know that right now. But inward migration for critical needs, for jobs that we don't have people in Ireland to fill. But we are bringing in tens of thousands of people into the country.
There's so many of those jobs that Irish people won't fill,
No, Fran.
whether it's in hospitality or in our hospitals.
You see, here's the problem, Fran, and this is the controversial part that we have to face up to. We do not have, as a country, a responsibility to fill minimum wage jobs with workers from outside the country. Because all that's doing, Fran, is putting profits into the pockets of people who want to pay people low wages. We don't have that responsibility. Like, if you take the amount of chippers, the amount of pizza parlours, the amount of, vape shops, things like that, which are filled with workers which have come over to this country to work in those, we have got to say to ourselves once and for all, we don't need those services. So if we want those services...
We do need them in hospital. We might need them in vape shops or in barber shops or wherever, or telephone repair shops. But we do need them in hospitality and in
we
hospitals.
do, and we will get Irish workers to do those jobs if those Irish workers are paid enough money that they can live on the wages, Fran. One of the reasons we have a sweet spot...
But Liam, I don't understand this. Are there not legal obligations on people to pay, on businesses to pay people properly, wherever they're from?
Minimum wage. The absolute minimum wage. The problem in Ireland is you have an issue where if you earn the minimum wage, you earn too much money to have practically any support from the state. So you don't get any help with housing. You don't get any help with as you said,
it's not
the cost of
attractive for
existence.
people
So
to take up these jobs.
It's becoming less and less attractive for people to work. There are more and more people making conscious decisions to drop out of the workforce because that's the way they can survive.
Why don't I hear this conversation all the time, everywhere, on our national airwaves? Then
this is why I'm trying to get people to start talking about it now. An awful lot of people, Fran, they almost feel resigned. They almost feel like the government haven't been listening to them. There's no common sense in Irish politics at the moment, as far as I'm concerned. I'm constantly hearing, let me say something else which might sound controversial to people. Even the amount of people we're bringing into the health service, and we're being told, we have to bring them in to run the health service.
And we'd be lost without them.
And we'd be lost without them. Why weren't we ramping up the amount of training in Irish health service workers for the past 5 years? Why aren't we doing it now?
In health, you mean?
In health, absolutely. Why aren't we training?
But my understanding is that we are, but they're going away.
No, we're not, Fran. Even at the moment, at the current population increase, the trends for current population increase, we're not training enough doctors and nurses to follow the population increase. So we're actually building in the fact that we are going to have more people coming into the country to help in the health service. The ones that are here, they're doing a fantastic job. Absolutely delighted they're here. But why are we constantly creating a system where there's going to be more and more, instead of actually building a better system for Irish workers in healthcare to live here? Why aren't we giving nurses a better chance to buy a house? Why aren't we giving hotel orderlies a better chance to build a house? I've often said this, Fran, when you talk about housing costs, and I've said this to you and I've said this to other party members here as well. If you take a surgeon in a surgery this morning, he's earning €250,000. If you take a cleaner in the same surgery this morning, earning €30,000, the average wage of those two workers is €140,000, because you add the two wages together and divide by two. But the cleaner isn't earning €140,000. That person can't live. They can't buy a house themselves. They can't get on with their life. But the surgeon can't do their job until they've done theirs. So we have to understand that every job in the health service, every job in the economy is important. But we're pushing a huge number of people in that to stay in their homes, to live 5, 6, 7 people into a house, to give them no chance of saving money to buy their own house, to stop them creating families themselves, to delay the fact when they start family creation. We're having less and less children in the country, and one of the reasons we're having less children in the country is because family formation has been delayed. You go back one generation, the average age for a woman to have a first child was early 20s, 21, 22. It's now 32 years of age. So we're actually building in the failure for the future, Fran. And as you said, nobody's talking about it. And if I have to be controversial, if I have to cause furore, and I hope the screens light up, and some people are going to push back against me, but at least they'll begin to talk about it, because we have to get the conversation going at some point.
Yeah, are you getting the feedback that I'm getting as well? I mean, we're in no doubt we have a part to play on the world stage, but ordinary people are of the opinion that our politicians appear to be flitting around the globe all of the time, interfering in all sorts of events that are going on, all geopolitical events, And we seem to be blind to some of the basic stuff that we've been discussing this morning.
Absolutely, Fran.
Are you hearing that?
I am hearing it, and anybody with ears that are willing to listen. The problem with that is that politicians will take on a cause célèbre, and they will believe that that's the only thing that people care about. I have great interest
in... that's Ukraine, Gaza...
I have great interest in Palestine and what's happening in Palestine, and I believe what's happening in Palestine is wrong. But I have just as much interest in the fact that people in Palace Green can't afford to live. And I think that's what we need to understand. Let's fix the problems first. What's happening in Venezuela has very, very little to do with the ordinary Irish person. And the Irish person, apart from the fact that they look at it and think, oh, Trump has gone off on a mad one again, most people probably wouldn't be able to point out on the map where Venezuela is, or care less, or
because
understand.
Because they don't have the time. They're trying to get their families
because they're trying
looked after.
Exactly, they're trying to put food on the table. They're trying to pay the bills, and they're trying to get their kids to school and back. They don't really care about those. But we have a couple of politicians in the country who think it's the only thing we care about, and frankly, it diverts debate. It diverts time. It diverts conversation from what I believe are the most important issues. Irish people, like people all over the world, are very, very simple people, to be quite frank, Fran. They just want to get on. Charlie McCreevy said it brilliantly about 20 years ago. You know, a couple of pounds in their pocket, a roof over their head, a job, be able to go out to a match and have a few pints at the weekend, and most people are happy. And that's what it is. But now we are struggling to put a roof over people's heads. We are paying a fortune to educate our children, only to get on a plane. And that's what's happening. And, you know, we said this during the 80s, Fran, when we had no choice to do it. But now we're spending the money in educating them and then sending them away. 1 second, Fran. Sorry.
And many people onto us as well, and I know you did allude to this earlier on, is not to forget carers in this particular discussion.
But you see, Fran...
Well. Yeah.
But you see, Fran, here's what happens. You know, I'm not forgetting carers. When we have this discussion, we end up speaking at a micro issue, which is carers, or we end up speaking about a micro issue, which is, the cost of beef. I'm talking about, there's a wider issue. Of course there's not enough money for carers. There's not enough money for carers because we've denuded the health system in the first place. And that's a huge problem that we're going to have in the future. You know, we haven't put in enough spaces to look after older people in the places where we used to, the likes of St. Patrick's in Cashel, the likes of the community nursing unit, which I wanted to talk to you about this week, and I'll talk to you about next week. Still absolutely nothing about that, Fran. And we're in 2026. St. Patrick's Hospital is due, Our Lady's Hospital is due to have its certification taken away in 5 months' time. And we don't even know where we're going to build a new unit. Never mind have it built by the time the certification goes away. So when we have the conversation, and I don't want to dismiss what that caller has just said about carers. Of course we don't forget about carers. We've got to remember every single worker. We've got to remember, because workers, the people who are out in work this morning listening, and most of them probably can't because they don't have a chance because they're working, are the ones who are keeping the country going. But they're getting no help from the government. You know, and it's never, as I said, whenever the day of the budget, Fran, the very first thing when the budget comes out, what's been the increase in social welfare? What's been the increase in the pension? What's been the increase in the carers allowance? What's been the increase in the fuel allowance? It's never who's going to pay for it. There's never an increase. You know, what was the biggest increase for working families in the budget last year was in the working family payment, which is a social welfare payment to accept that the amount of money you're getting in the job you're in isn't enough to live on. It's a social welfare payment for workers. You know, no worker, and I've said this started in America about 30 years ago, where they started giving, food vouchers, and they started giving these tokens. It started in Britain about 20 years ago, and we're now into it in Ireland, where we have not only the fact that we have people on welfare itself, but we have people working on welfare. It's crazy, you know, we can't have a system.
And as you said, with our GDP...
while we're telling the world we're the most successful economy in the world.
All right,
it doesn't make sense.
I think you might have just ignited a huge conversation.
Good, and let people talk. Yeah.
All right, Liam, pleasure. Thanks very much indeed. Happy New Year to you.
You're welcome,
as well. Thanks very much indeed. Councillor Liam Browne with us this morning. 083 311 3311.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Hook On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Hook On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, huge reaction to that conversation there with Liam Browne. Just to bring you some of it, one of our listeners said we need more people like Liam Browne to speak out. Somebody saying, apart from stating the obvious, what is Liam offering as a solution? Well, I suppose what he's offering is a platform where we can start talking about it, because I'm not sure if there's enough discussion by a long shot on many of the issues that was brought up this morning. Paidraig on to say, Fran, I've been pointing this out to you since I ended my time as a carer. 18 years experienced as a highly trained hospitality manager. Employers won't pay for experience. They only want minimum wage workers and take advantage of experience. And again, lots coming in where carers are concerned as well, and lots more on that, and I will get back to it later. Over the weekend, thousands of Irish farmers participated in a protest in Athlone as anger grows over the progression of the EU Mercusor deal. Now, on Friday, the EU ambassador approved a trade deal with Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay, but it still needs to be backed, as you know, by the European Parliament. Now, the Irish government voted against the deal in its current form, with senior cabinet figures insisting that negotiations are not finalised. A Bursicane beef Cllr farmer, Paidraig Moran, attended the protest, and he joins me now. Paidraig, good morning to you.
Good morning, Fran.
And good to talk to you today, and thank you for coming on with us. You were talking to Leanne about this. You said the meeting in Athlone was a humbling experience. What do you mean by that, Paidraig?
Well, firstly, I suppose in my lifetime, and I've attended a lot of demonstrations and protests, which was the first time that I could say that the whole community and rural Ireland was out. And I think full credit has to go to Kieran Malooly and Michael Fitzmaurice and the Independent Ireland group for being able to bring and unite rural Ireland to come to one place. And I suppose what was really humbling about it, Fran, was very much as you walk through the process, you've seen women with buggies, you've seen young children carrying placards, you've seen a lot of young people, which we for years been saying the young people in rural Ireland weren't there, but they certainly stood out on Saturday in their thousands, but I think a lot of it as well, what was humbling about it was the anger and fear that's involved in this deal that could actually decimate rural Ireland. And, in Ireland, we're renowned for the high standards of food production across the world. And, that's only right that we have those standards and regulations there. But the frustration is that, we're going to have inferior product coming in on top of that that has no traceability. Like, there's full traceability in Ireland from farm to fork. So when a calf is born on this farm, it's tagged, it's put up on a database, and that animal can be followed the whole way through to the food chain. Where we're going now to compete, to try and compete against food product that has no traceability and is very much use of growth promoters, which has been banned for well over 20 years here in the EU. And the reason they were banned, Fran, was that there was human health issues with it. So it's very frustrating as a beef farmer to see that we're going through all those hoops and regulations, and the EU is now looking to bring in this inferior quality product on top of us as such.
Now, they are assuring us that there are regulations in place and there will be inspection and the like, but you're not satisfied with that, Paidraig?
Definitely not, Fran. I'm sure we have seen that the product has unfortunately got into the food chain here in Ireland from that. So that turns that on its head as such. And but no, look, to be honest, I don't think the restrictions and is going to be good enough to stop this. And I suppose the other side of this, we have to look at the whole human health and public health side of it. But along with that, we have to look at the environmental side. European farmers have been looking at environmental regulations for a long time and trying to improve it. Here we have now, if this deal goes ahead, we have the lungs of the world going to disappear in the Amazon basin. At the moment, we can see that every day there's acres and hectares, hundreds of hectares been taken out of the Amazon basin. There's no environmental standards in South America. So again, we have to look at that as well.
I would imagine, though, from a beef farming point of view, is it not even more serious what might happen down the line, Paidraig, with a UK Mercusor deal, because the UK is so important to you as a market, as a beef farmer?
Without a doubt, Fran. I mean, they are our major importers of beef as such, and there's always that. But if you have a level playing field, you have some hope. But with this deal, we have no level playing field because we have the high regulations. Like in Ireland, family farming is who produces the beef. So you sell your few animals every year that you finish, but you're now going to compete against industrial farm where there's tens of thousands of animals on each ranch out there that can be produced with less standards and less regulation than we do. So, I mean, I suppose my concern, and that's why there was a lot of urban people at the protest on Saturday, because they're concerned for their human health as well.
The European Affairs Minister, Thomas Byrne, he sort of broke with the wider government stance on this, Paidraig, and he's publicly supporting the Mercosur trade deal, and he's basically saying that our economy and agriculture are built on free trade and overall will benefit greatly from this agreement. Now, to have somebody of his stature coming out and saying that, what does that say to you? It
doesn't sit very well with me, Fran, I have to say. He's certainly not coming from an agricultural point of view anyway. That's all I would say. And, he has to remember that Ireland is very much an agricultural country, and Ireland depends on agriculture for its economy. When you look at the amount of exports every year, the amount of people that's employed in agriculture across the country. So I think that has to take a precedence over what else are we going to be able to export to South America. So I think we have to look after that. And I mean, we have to look at across Europe. We're not alone on this. There's other countries in Europe, and particularly agricultural countries, is fighting to make sure that this deal doesn't go ahead as well, because they can see that the desecration that's going to happen in rural areas if it does go ahead.
Because of the government making this decision they did in the end, is there a danger we might pay a price in the coming years where that is concerned? And I'm thinking particularly, I suppose, of what's happening with the nitrates and the like. And we were given that as a bit of a sop for 3 years, but after 3 years you'd wonder what's going to happen then.
Well, that is for sure. But look at, I think where I'm coming from very much is that I'm a beef producer, and I'm on a family farm, and I have a son here working with me. And I suppose I'm looking at, and he was actually in Athlone on Saturday with his tractor, and it was brilliant to see the amount of young farmers that got out, because it's the unknown here.
Yeah.
That really, it is, as I said earlier, this is the most difficult decision we've ever had put on agriculture in Europe. And that has to be looked at. Does people want food security? Do they want to look after their health? I think that has to be paramount in all this. Do you know where your food is coming from? And unfortunately, as you said earlier, we did see some of this inferior meat coming into the food chain.
Yeah. And
that's why I don't think our standards and our regulation is going to hold up against that.
The other thing that, and again, because you've experience of this, but the other thing that Minister Thomas Byrne pointed out was that, there were similar fears around that CETA deal with Canada, that economic and trade agreement with Canada, and that failed to materialise. In fact, it ended up benefiting the country. Is there a danger that we're overplaying this in some way?
I honestly don't believe so,
Yeah.
Fran, because I think this one is a lot different. We're dealing with a very big amount of countries as well in this deal, and we're coming from a very, I suppose, where cost of production is so limited, or very limited, little compared to European, and really, in the end of the day, you just ask the question, is food being sacrificed to sell technical equipment and cars and car parts into South America? And I fear that's what's going on here, that we are again going to be to sacrifice lamb or beef or whatever it is in this deal.
Well, it happened with our fishing industry, didn't it, Paidraig?
Absolutely, and I'd hate to think that our agricultural industry is going to go the same. And this affects all agriculture. Some people say it's just beef farmers and poultry farmers. It's going to affect the dairy industry, because what's going to happen, the calves that they produce that goes into the beef side of things as well. So it has, across the industry, it has a serious effect. And it does worry me. As I said, I feel I had to go to Athlone on Saturday, but what was heartening about was the amount of people that was there that thought, like-minded people who had to go out and show their frustration to this deal.
And even people outside of farming, as you say, you saw young mothers there with buggies and the like.
Yeah. And they would have been farm families, but they also be urban. I mean, there was even a banner there from people from Dublin City. So it goes to show that there is a cross-community rejection of this deal. And, really, the ministers and the TDs would want to sit up and listen as well. That we need a strong agricultural industry in this country and across Europe. And I think food security, and I go back to it all the time, food security has to be paramount, and food safety.
Well, in the geopolitical atmosphere that we're in, Paidraig, certainly food safety should be very high on the agenda.
Yeah, and it's put to the bottom, Fran, and it amazed me. Like, where does people think food is going to come from? That's really it. But whether the food has to come with good standards as well. There's no point in saying that we bring in inferior food in here. We need to have proper food for proper public health and human health as well. And I mean, I see it here every year. I bring American tours on the farm, and I have American people here, and they're just taken in by the whole aspect of family farming. And the way we produce our food, how we and I go through all the regulations, the standards that we do from the time the calf is born until it ends up in the food chain, everything we have to do, and to say that's what we want going forward. We want to know that where this food is coming from, that we're going to enjoy the food because we know it's safe and it has been produced with good animal welfare issues as well.
It's down to the European Parliament then, Paidraig, and most people, thinking at this stage this is a done deal. I presume you don't believe that. Do you think there's still a chance? Well,
Fran, I will use a good comparison to that. I mean, on Saturday, Kieran Malooly said the first half is over. And I thought to myself, actually, Tipperary in the second half and the All-Ireland won the All-Ireland.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that in the second half we can convince people not to go ahead with this deal. It has too serious consequences for Europe. And we need to go back and say no to this. We need our politicians to get off their hands as well. They're sitting on their hands at the minute, and they need to get off. I know they came out on the last minute and voted no, but you could be a little bit sceptical on that and say, why the last minute? Why weren't they out weeks before that?
Well, they had 25. They had 25 years, Paidraig.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And it was the last 25 minutes. That they actually came out, but it's so serious, Fran. I mean, it does worry me, and it's the first time I've been really, really worried about any of these deals that has gone on. That it could actually decimate rural Ireland. We've seen post offices going, we've seen shops, we've seen everything going. So if the agriculture isn't thriving, rural economy is gone, and this country is not solely dependent, but really dependent on agriculture for its economy.
Most interesting conversation and very eloquent too, Paidraig. A pleasure. Thank you for coming on with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you.
Good morning to you. And that's Paidraig Moran speaking to us there. We'll be back in just a moment.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tip Today on 1-800-938-007.
Yesterday I spoke to Councillor Shamie Morris he spoke about several different things, but at one stage we spoke about his concerns around the Shannon Pipeline, and of course yesterday's council meeting then we discovered that Tipperary Cocoa has not yet decided if it supports or opposes the controversial Shannon Pipeline plans, and Uisce Éireann, as you know, finally submitted a planning application last month. The local authority has until the end of March to make an official submission on the proposals. But Brian was listening to our conversation yesterday and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Brian.
Morning, Fran. How are you?
I'm well and great to talk to you, Brian. You have some concerns about the pipeline. What are they, Brian?
Well, first off, Seamus was saying there yesterday that some of the farmers are paid compensation already, and yes, there's no planning permission granted for it.
Well, I think the deal is done for the amount they're getting, but I'm not sure. I don't think payments have been made yet.
That's the impression I got that he's doing it, but apart from all of that, I don't know how way the engineers or whoever's over all this, because it definitely must be backhanders in it, because who in their right mind would be trying to build houses with sandcastles?
Yeah, well, we have no reason to believe that there's backhanders or anything like that. But what is your concern around what foundations and stuff, Brian, is it?
Yes, foundations. They're trying to fill a bucket with holes.
Right. Explain that to me now, what you mean by that.
They have pipelines leaking under all the houses in the city of Dublin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're saying there's very little water. They're trying to bring water from the Shannon up to Dublin, which will end up increasing the pressure of the water underground in Dublin, which will mean it's like a power hose under foundations. Like you've seen it there in the news, basements of buildings flooded for a long time. Where is that soil going?
Right, it's going to end up in a worse situation. Yeah, and you're right. We saw that with aspects of what Irish Water and Tipperary are trying to do when they renew a certain length of pipe and they push that water then into an inferior infrastructure. Yeah, it does cause issues.
A child can figure it out, but yes, these so-called educated engineers in Dublin can't figure this out.
So is this a disaster as far as you're concerned?
Did they ever go to a beach and build a sandcastle and see what happens when the water comes in?
So
just look around the world to see sinkholes appear in different parts of cities all over the world because of that.
Yeah, and when they tell you this is their only option in Dublin, that they've looked at all the other options. Yeah.
It's not their only option. Their only option would be to go straight across the road out to the beach and take the water out of the seawater and purify it.
Desalination. But they're telling us that's not practical in Dublin.
It is practical. It's practical all over the world. It's just not practical for the Irish government because somebody's not getting enough of a backhander. Everybody knows the Irish government is probably the most corrupt government in the world at the moment. Look what they're doing with housing planning and all of that.
Yeah, well,
they're bringing in all these foreigners, would say Ukrainians and all that, putting up all these modular homes all over the country without planning permission. And yet the farmer blowing in South Tip can't put a mobile home in his back garden.
Yeah. So you're very unhappy with what's going on in general in the country, are you?
The whole entire country is very unhappy with the Irish government.
Yeah.
And successive Irish governments.
Yeah.
They must be the most corrupt in the world, in my own opinion. Look what they're doing with the hospital. They haven't even hardly finished building the hospital, and yes, look at all the billions that got into that.
Right. Well, you might decide that they're inept. That might be your opinion, or you might decide that they're not good at it. But I mean, corruption's a whole different thing. So we might leave that out of the conversation, I think. Do you think?
They're making it very obvious that they must be corrupt the way they're carrying on, because if they're supposed to be educated like they are, they couldn't carry on and make the same mistake over and over and over again.
And you think that's what they do? That's
what they're doing. Like, I mean, you have a buildings company or any other kind of a company, you try to make a profit. The Irish government are doing the complete opposite. They're spending good money after bad all the time. They can't take advice of genuine people that know it. They think they know better than everyone else, and yet they don't.
Well, they have all sorts of consultancies and consultants getting involved in all of it.
Probably all brothers and sisters or nieces or nephews and all of that. They're all getting backhanders. That's what I'm saying.
Well, we have no proof of any of that, but that's...
They're creating jobs for the family. That's all they're doing.
Yeah. God, you're very cynical about it all, Brian.
Well, look, somebody has to call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
It's about time now that people walk up and say, look, enough is enough. We don't want this. So even look at the last election there when Sinn Féin won the election. Fianna Fáil refused point blank to talk to Sinn Féin and took over government.
Well, that's democracy at work, you know.
I understand all of that, but at the same time, Sinn Féin won the election at the time, but Fianna Fáil refused to talk to them and created a government without Sinn Féin. And yet Sinn Féin won the government, or won the election.
Yeah, so you're very... And tell me this before I leave you go, Brian. When you're having a chat with other fellas in pubs or at batches or whatever, do a lot of people feel as you feel?
An awful lot of people.
Yeah.
I was talking to a girl, I didn't realise he was a girl till afterwards. He told me afterwards I was in a pub down the country. And he told me straight out, he says, look, in his opinion, there's going to be a revolution in Ireland against the government. It's only a matter of when. Because he said he can see it on the street. He says he's meeting it every day. The resentment against the Irish government is unreal, he said.
Yeah, well...
There's so much corruption, in his opinion, there's so much corruption going on in the Dublin, the way they're walking over people. Like I said, the example there now with that farmer being kicked off his own backyard with their mobile home. And yet they're bringing in the foreigners, putting houses everywhere and anywhere they want without planning permission. The Irish people are homeless. There's 14 or 15,000 Irish people homeless and doing nothing about it. When people look for money from the government, the Irish people look for money from the government, they don't have it. Zelensky was over here in Ireland, they handed him 100 million there not so long ago, and not about it. Suddenly they can find 100 million, but they can't find 100,000 for an Irish person here.
All right, Brian, I must leave it there, but thanks for getting in touch and thanks for talking to us on that. That's Brian, that's his opinion. And what do you make of his opinions? 083 311 3311. Lots coming into us. I'll have a look through it and I'll bring it to you in just a moment.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the second hour of Tip Today, 1800 938 007. And now the sugar factory operated in Thurles from 1934 to 1989. It was one of the main employers in the town during that time. In January 2026 marks 36 years on since the shock closure of the sugar factory. Here is a clip from the archives.
At today's local management union meeting, the ITGWU said that the layoff plan was totally unacceptable. The cost saving to the company for the month would be £120,000 at the Thurles plant, said the union. But the Department of Social Welfare would end up paying that out, so the layoffs were just a paper exercise. What they really feared in Thurles, which was already shocked by the layoff plan, said a union representative, was that this was the thin end of the wedge, leading to further layoffs. They see Thurles and Tuam as the company's two vulnerable plants and suspect that management is moving the company into a situation in the long term in which there will be only two factories, at Mallow and Carlow. Union men said today that management admitted that the maintenance work, which would normally be done by staff men now, will instead have to be done by outside contractors and part-timers next summer. They were giving warning that they would not cooperate in the destruction of their own jobs and would not work alongside outsiders. A national level meeting between the ITGWU and sugar company management is now planned for Dublin on Thursday next.
We are concerned about the long-term effects that this will have on Thurles. We have stated previously that Thurles is vulnerable. We believe that this is the thin end of the wedge, and we have no guarantee from the company. We have specifically asked the question of local management as to the future guarantees, and these future guarantees are not there beyond next campaign.
So are you saying in effect that you don't believe it's just for a 1 month layoff?
We are sceptical. We're sceptical because of the vulnerability of Thurles as the smallest of the plants outside of Tuam. And seeing that Tuam has got commitments from government and so forth, these commitments have not been given as far as Thurles is concerned, so it could well be that Thurles would be more vulnerable even than Tuam in this type of situation.
But I mean, they've been rationalising, I would say, the workforce for several years in this and other plants. Are they not at the point now where they've reached target levels of manning? Are you not safe from now?
We have lost 50% of our members here in the last 6 years. 12 months ago we had a further rationalisation programme, and at that time we were given to understand by management that that was the bottom line and that there would be no further redundancies or layoffs. 12 months on, we have this suggestion now of a month's layoff for 53 of our members.
Well, the future for the place, to me, I'd be very concerned about the future of the Thurles plant. And that's not saying I don't want to scare the people of Thurles, but it seems that the town is shocked on such an announcement by the company of Thurles and Tuam. So we're the two weakest links in the group by the company's action and the way they've made this announcement.
Do you think in the long term then you're for the chop?
Well, that could be a long way down the road. I wouldn't like to say that there'll be battles fought and that if that do materialise. But I couldn't say we'd be stronger than Cllr or Mello in the situation.
The final voice on that clip there, that of Eddie Bulfin, who worked at the sugar factory, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Eddie.
Morning, Frank.
And it's good to talk to you today. When you listen back and when you hear that piece there, I mean, the prediction was completely correct. I mean, there was the 1 month layoff, I think it was 1987, and then we know what happened in 1989.
Yeah, it was 86 when they announced the layoffs for the month.
Oh, was it 86? Okay. And then
86.
And the prediction then, of course, was that, you know, it wasn't just a month layoff and we were looking down the road then. And what eventually happened in 1989, how big a shock was that, Eddie?
Well, it was an awful shock to the people and to myself and the people at Thurles, because when that announcement was made to close it, like, we were making a profit in Thurles. And we're making a profit. Like, we wasn't a loss-making situation. And that's why we opposed it so strongly at the time.
And what was it put down to? I mean, my understanding is that the decision was partly driven by EU policy to, I don't know, consolidate sugar production, I suppose. Was that your understanding at the time?
Well, we had a quota, like, for the four factories. The quota for Ireland was 200,000 tonnes of sugar.
Yeah.
And that was just divided up between the four factories. Like, Cllr would be the biggest and Mallow would be second. We were third. So they put up a 60,000 tonne silos in Thurles 3 years before that.
Yeah, and the numbers of people, about 300 people employed, but during the campaign then there was more. Was that the way it worked?
About 600 or 700 between contractors bringing in beer and the spin-off to people around repairing trucks and all to that. It was a big situation, the campaign. An awful lot of people survived in it and looking forward to it. Outside of the people even working in the sugar factory. It was a big bonus to the town. The town would be always buzzing around the Christmas time. Plenty of money in circulation, like, you know.
What was the reaction from politicians at the time? Because there in North Tipperary you had Michael O'Kennedy, you had Michael Smith, both ministers at the time. You had Michael Lowry, of course, as well. What was the reaction from the politicians to this?
Well, the reaction was that they were in government at the time and they were ministers. And to me, they had very little clout. The factory closed, like, you know.
Yeah.
The factory closed, and I was listening to your programme there this morning on the beef. Well, the sugar was something like the beef. The sugar is gone now. I hope the beef don't go like on the situation that you were talking about this morning with beef coming in. We have sugar coming in now and not producing it even in Ireland.
Yeah, it's amazing you say that, but when I heard the clip there, I, like yourself, I was making the comparison to all those years on.
You're making the comparison?
No, the same comparison as yourself, and it would lead you to be a little bit concerned indeed. The impact on the town, did it close its doors then on a gradual basis, or what happened in 1989?
In 1989, there was a skeleton staff, there was 13, and then there was office, there was about 25, maybe 30. And because they hadn't room for the sugar, and they took the sugar from the factories up to the silo and pumped it into the silo here in Thurles. And that lasted until 2006.
Yeah.
And then they closed Mallow.
Yeah.
And Mallow was the last to close.
Yeah. Were you not given some promise? Was there not options for something else to happen at the factory?
Oh, yeah, but sir, they made promises of 500 jobs. GMX, Marriott, Radiator Company, Tipperary Candy. And the company into all those put 5 million. And when the 5 million was in over a 5-year period, they closed up, closed shop. There was no jobs.
What was the effect on Thurles of the closure, do you think?
Thanks to still in Thurles, the effect of it.
Is it?
It is. And the only problem you'd have now, Frank, if you were bringing beef to Thurles and you'd be talking about it every day, the traffic, I don't know how to get through to town now, with lorries and all of that.
Yeah, I suppose. And everybody, including my own father and our relations, we all worked there, and it was so important, particularly for workers around the time of the campaign every year.
Because they used to transfer from Bournemona, was a seasonal job as well. Yeah. They come from Bournemona to the sugar, and they go back then when the sugar being back to Bournemona. Like if you look at the Thurles, Frank, going back to those years, all the jobs that's gone out of Thurles. You had the textile factory, you had Erin Foods, you had Jewel Valley Ice Cream.
Yeah.
You had C&C. The Ones Minerals.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of jobs gone, and the textile factory went as well.
And no replacement, of course.
We were the envy of an awful lot of inland town. We had an awful lot of... Thurles was a hive of employment. We were the envy of an awful lot of... For an inland town, we were envy with all the jobs that were there. And the only thing that's standing to Thurles a bit is there's a way out. You have great train services, and a lot of people travel to other jobs on the trains, but the trains are running very punctual that you can travel to work, to wherever you're working.
Yeah, well, that was part of the attraction of putting it there when the decision was made in 1933. The train service there, the central location of the town, the available workforce and all of it. It ticked all the boxes way back in the day.
I ticked them too when they were trying to take it out of it. Ticked all the boxes. And geographically, if you looked at all the factory, Thurles was the most central when you'd look at Carlo. Like all the roads coming into Thurles. You look at Mallow shuts down. If you were looking at one factory situation, it would be either Carlo or Thurles.
And why the Thurles lose out then? Do you think, was this all about, I mean, you mentioned yourself, we had 2 ministers at the time. Why, was it political clout or lack of, or what was it?
Well, to me, there was no political clout. You had a minister for agriculture, and nothing about the Thurles factory went. As simple as that.
And as you say, the impact is still evident in the town, Eddie.
So I don't have to tell you, you know Thurles as good as Eddie Bulfin do. But it's a dead town compared to what it was. when you had all those industries in Thurles.
What was it like to work in the sugar factory?
That was a great job.
Was it?
A good substantial job. Everybody reared their families out of it, and there's the one wage was going into there was only one working in those times.
Yeah.
Going back that many years. So in later years that the two work in the house.
Yeah.
It was an awful blow. It was an awful blow to the outside areas as well, back around the country places, up the mountains and far apart. They used to all come in and do the campaigns,
and it was vital to them to bring up the few bob they'd make every year, I suppose. And
it was great. It was a great company. I got paid for every minute you worked in it. I could say nothing about the company. It was an awful loss.
At what point along the way did you figure that there were difficulties ahead? I mean, was it 1986 you began to see, or did you see something earlier that might lead you to believe that you were in trouble?
Well, we were that small bit in trouble, the procurement of the beef. We were bringing beef from Wexford, and the costs of bringing it from Wexford to Thurles was a big cost, where the other factories, the beef was very near to them. Yes. Our costs were that bit higher. But Wexford were producing nearly half of what beef we need in Thurles at that time.
Yeah, and can you remember the atmosphere in the immediate aftermath of the closure, Eddie? Can you?
I can. People were very financially... there was no jobs there then to pick up another job.
So
like burning, buy a ton of coal and keep burning it and don't add to it. It's gone. Well, the lump sum money went very quick as well.
So what was the result on the dole, I suppose, and immigration too, I guess?
In fact, there wasn't as much handouts in those times 40 years ago as they are today now.
Yeah.
No such thing as getting vouchers for oil, or people are getting more on the unemployment today than they were in those times. And I know they need it now, the people in unemployment, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the same 40 years ago. There was very little handouts to the workers in those times.
So families went from a very decent wage to
very little, depending on what they get in the social welfare. And they had their little lump sum, but the lump sum wasn't long going when you had no job.
Somebody else...
An awful loss. There's a heartbreak to everybody.
Yeah, somebody reminding us as well that there was the mushroom factory behind the sugar factory there as well.
And the mushroom, there in the fords down the road from it.
Yeah.
Talking about over 1,000 people working between the whole lot.
Yeah. And they were, all those jobs were lost in a relatively close few years, were they not?
Well, the mushrooms has gone before the factory, and then the factory went down. The fords went about 7 or 8 years after. I know I could be wrong on the years, but it went fairly shortly after anyway.
Well, within a 10-year period, there was huge loss of employment in the town. Yeah.
There was an awful lot.
Yeah. What did you go on to do? What did you go on to do afterwards, Eddie?
No, I had my job. Our job was we were kept on with the service. I had service.
Yeah, you were one of that 13 or 14
people.
Yeah,
I was one of the 12 that was kept on.
Yeah.
So I retired out of it.
Yeah.
Because I was involved in the silo where the sugar was coming in. And there was a depot there that we used to do animal feeds.
Yes.
And then they brought in temporary people when when production is increased, you'd want more people in. And they'd bring them in. So I retired out of it. But if all the people didn't leave, I'd be gone. There was people a lot more service than me left. They wanted to go. Some of them got a pension and went.
Yeah, and I just see on the screen in front of me here memories flooding back to people about seemingly there was a great atmosphere among the workers there, and it was kind of a...
it was like a family, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a family, families. You'd meet them, families from families. I've been uptown now talking to them. Knew your father, knew your mother, like, you know.
Yeah.
To a close-knit community.
Well, Eddie, thanks for agreeing to come on with us today, and I'm sure it's bringing you back lots of memories as well. Thanks for coming on with us.
It was a sad time, Frank, when it closed. I'll tell you that now. People cried when they were going out the gate.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. Indeed. Eddie, thanks and good morning to you, and thanks for coming on with us. That's Eddie Bulfin there speaking to us about the closure of the sugar factory in Thurles this month. Back there in 1989. Do you have memories you'd like to share with us? 083 311 3311, or indeed you can speak to Leanne on a free phone number. That's 1800 938 007.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, last week on the programme, I took you along with me as I took the plunge and got my first tattoo in a Prodigy ink in Clonmel. I can honestly say we had a huge reaction on the show. Our inboxes have been absolutely filled with people getting in touch to share their own tattoos with us and to talk to us about the meaning of the tattoos and all of that. And along the way, I've been surprised by some people who said, yeah, we have tattoos and we have them for years. Former Sinn Féin Deputy Martin Browne is with me. Good morning to you, Martin.
Morning, Fran. Good morning to your listeners.
Good to talk to you, and thanks for coming on with us, Martin. You have tattoos, Martin. I didn't realise that.
I have, Fran. No, it's just something that Conor Reedy said on the panel the other day. He was wondering whether TDs or politicians had tattoos, and I decided to get in touch with Leanne. I don't know why Conor would be surprised that some of us have. I have 8 tattoos altogether, Fran.
Yeah, and will you tell me about that? I'm looking at some images on the screen in front of me. Obviously, a lot of them have meaning for you, Martin.
Yeah, there's the harp and there's the Celtic crosses, but it's just part of our culture. There's others then, like the date we got married.
Yeah.
There's the sun there. There's a family tree. That's something I designed myself. I've always believed that all life comes from the sun, and the wife is inside in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And the children outside and the grandchildren. Then outside that, now you can see one of my is starting to fill that side of it, and I'll have faster than the others, but that's up to themselves. And there's others in with would be a political stand to in France.
Yeah, I see you have an Easter lily there. I think that's an Easter lily, is it? Yeah,
it's an Easter lily on my back. I have the United We Stand. That's in relation to trouble that was perceived to be in our party here in Tipperary a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because of split. I done it at that time just to show people that we were as strong after the argument that time, and we still are.
Yeah, it's really interesting though that you would use tattoos to make strong statements, Martin.
It was, I suppose, as much for myself and as anybody else.
Yeah.
There's the barbed wire that's in relation to the 81 hunger strike.
Yeah.
I'm involved in Sinn Féin, as everybody knows, and it's part of our history. And the way I look at it is, it means something to me. I don't push any tattoos or any like that onto people. It was something that I sat down myself. Look, I have 8, Fran. I don't know will I get any more. Yes. I've always felt that if I do a tattoo, it must mean something to me or something to the family, not to really the wider public, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's good, but I can't get over the amount of interest. We thought this was a light little item we do after Christmas, but it really took off big time. I suppose what Conor Reedy was saying in a roundabout way was that there was a time when tattoos wasn't associated with maybe professional people, politicians, lawyers, all of that kind of thing. I suppose that's all changed now, Martin, hasn't it?
Oh, changed. Look, I'll be honest, when I went to Lynch House first, I started wearing long sleeve shorts, and anybody who knows me knows I'm in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, I suppose, most of the time. But people from Cashel knew me well, started asking why was I changing to long sleeve shorts and that. Was I hiding something? And that's when I actually started going back to wearing short sleeve shorts and that. But I wouldn't say no one ever paid any heed to what was on my arms above in Leinster House or in Dublin when I got there.
Right.
And I suppose that's the big change. That perception was there that probably professionals and that didn't have them. But you have the guards and everybody now, and I don't see why there should be any problem with it, Fran.
Yeah, for sure.
And congratulations on coming into the tattoo club as well.
I was finally dragged.
Leanne and Alison will be next.
Certainly I know Ali has a tattoo. I'm not sure about Leanne. She might tell me whether she has or not. But they dragged me into it, you see, so they thought it would be great fun and the like. Would you draw the line at piercings, Martin?
No, I would myself, Fran, but if someone else decided to have a piercing, so be it. I'll be honest, I remember one stage a long, long time ago, we pierced an ear one night, but it came out the following morning until the ear was throbbing when we woke up the following morning.
Oh, God. So you did it yourselves?
The only experience of piercing, we done it ourselves one night after a few pints. I won't go down the road of piercing again.
I can well imagine, indeed. At what stage did you get your first tattoo? What were you very young?
No, I was in my 30s, late 30s, I'd say, when I got the first one, the Celtic Cross. We were on holidays at the time, Fran, out farming, and I suppose everybody's coming back to the tattoo at that stage. And we would then kind of be nosy and just inquiring, and I saw the Celtic Cross that I had in my arm, and I kind of fell for it, and we took a couple of days before we decided even that we'd get it done. So we got it done the day before we came home.
Right.
After that, then I suppose, whether you call it the bug or whatever, kind of set in. And just as you'd be sitting down, like I said, the family tree is something that I designed myself, just sitting on the chair here in the sitting room one night. Yeah. And it kind of built from that, and you were looking at different things then and different tattoos, and that's the way it worked for me, Fran.
Well, that's great. Well, I don't know why I was surprised, Martin, but fair play to you for talking about it now. It's great. I was talking earlier on about various different things on the programme, but a lot that I know that you would be interested in. And Liam Browne was talking to us earlier, and he was making the point that there's people out there, while our GDP looks like it's going through the roof and it's fantastic, a lot of people out there struggling, Martin. Is that what you're hearing from people in Cashel?
Fran, everybody's talking about it and struggling it. We will. And look, at a simple thing, and it was brought up earlier, and it keeps being brought up. We have a government that's going to increase petrol and diesel again. Everybody knows as soon as you increase petrol and diesel, it affects the small the customers and the cost of living, because the hauliers and all them have to. You had it about the tolls last week.
Yeah.
Every increase that they have to pass it on, and you can't blame them. And if they pass it on to the supermarket or the shop has to pass it on to keep their profits. And it is the ordinary Joe Soap or family that gets hit at the end with it. Look at, as far as housing, look at one of the things to stop, we say, homeless is increasing, is to bring back in that no fault evictions, Fran.
Yeah.
And another simple thing, and we've argued it, is if Martin Browne or Fran Curry or anybody is able to show over a 4 or 5 year period that they're able to pay the extraordinary rents that are being charged at this minute, that should be taken into account on the looking for a mortgage or looking for that savings when they go. But they're being hammered left, right and centre. Now, the only thing I would say is all the talk is about a €5 or €10 increase in social welfare or pensions or that. That is well deserved. If we want to make savings, go above that. Go to the CEOs, go to the consultants, go to those that are earning over 100,000 a year to start making cutbacks before you start cutting back on pensions or social welfare payments. And we all know that the middle is being squeezed. But let's start taking it from those that are bubbles instead of talking about those that are below.
And that would be Sinn Féin thinking all along. Why do you think there's not an appetite to do that?
I don't know, Fran. Look, I suppose history shows that, and I suppose the media have to blame to a small extent, because at every budget, and I keep saying this to people, the media and the government target maybe 3 or 4 things that come out in the budget that have very little effect to ordinary families or ordinary people. But the media and the government blast us morning, noon and night with that kind of stuff. It isn't until the January and the February the following year, when the cuts come in, that people start getting hit in their pockets. And I suppose people at that stage are afraid there's no noise being made. Am I Jody when if I raise my head above the parapet, will I get cut from my social welfare, or will something happen? And it's buying elections, and I hate saying it as well. Every year, for the year or two before an election, we get these giveaway budgets. But for the 3 budgets before that, people are being hit left, right and centre.
Yeah, and people would agree that that's certainly the case for 2026. But you're hearing everything that we spoke about this morning. You're hearing from the people who'll be making contact with you and looking for advice from you.
Yeah, Fran. Look, everyday living is gone out of control. Simple as that, the prices. So we went out for a drink last weekend, myself and Helen, and 3 drinks for €40.
Yeah.
3 drinks each. Like, as we said earlier, and you'll hear it below in the pub, or you'll hear it downtown. That used to do a weekend before. Now you're out for 3 drinks in your home. And an average wage or a low income wage, you just cannot do that anymore. So people aren't going. Now, I will say, Fran, part of it is, and you would see it going around the country, the whole social or side of living has completely changed.
Yeah.
Because I know 30 years ago, if I asked someone, come on, we go for a coffee, they would laugh at you.
Yes, I know.
Now they laugh at you if you ask them to go for a pint. The generation coming up now have changed completely from the pub scene that we were all used to when we grown up. It's to the coffee shops, to the vape shops, sitting down, nearly like the continent. We just don't have the weather.
Yeah, for sure.
But they sit down for their
But
cup of coffee.
am I reading too much? I often say it, that Martin, and particularly about Cashel Night. I said about Thurles last Saturday night. I came to Thurles about 12:30, quarter to 1. It seemed to be empty. I often pass through Cashel late at night, and it's empty. Am I reading too much into that then? Is it just a case that the culture of how we socialise is changing?
It's a bit of both, Fran, I suppose. Like I said, when I started working in 1980, I was getting £30 without a wire steel. I give half that to my mother. That other £15 done me from that Friday evening till the Monday morning, Tuesday morning. You go downtown now with that full £30 or €30, you're home within an hour.
Yeah.
And I suppose a lot of it comes from, as well, our younger generation have travelled an awful lot more, and they've seen in the likes of France, Australia, all these places, that you don't need to go in binge drinking into a pub or spend 10 hours in a pub on a weekend to have a bit of fun. That a lot of people, they will sit down in the plaza, they'll sit down in front of Fiends, Shane Cumminses and that, and drink their cup of coffee and have a chat for their hour or so.
Yeah, so it's changing out there, but as you say, it's a mixture of both. Yeah.
Yeah, you think of it with our generation growing up, and even with my own lads, and we're coming up to soon now, communions, confirmations, everything was focused as soon as you got out of the church, get to either a pub or a restaurant, have a bit to eat and drink for the day. I've seen the grandchildren now, they have no interest in that. They want to come home for a bouncy castle, or they want to go for a trip, or it's the whole thing has changed from when we grown up and when our own children grown up. And look at that, things evolve like that, and that's no harm either.
Interesting conversation. Martin, thanks very much indeed. Thanks for coming on with us. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning to you. That's Martin Browne speaking to us from Cashel there. Martin, of course, former Sinn Féin TD. Let me take a break. Back in just a moment.
Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter, or email tiptoday@tipfm.com.
And you're very welcome back. Leanne is with me. Good morning to you, Leanne.
Good morning, Fran.
And as usual, you're representing Gen Z.
Yeah, proud Gen Zer.
Proud Gen Zer. So what is it about you all turning back to the Bible, turning back to religion and stuff? What is happening there?
Yeah, so there was a survey done in England and in the US about faith and young people, particularly in Gen Z. And about 45% of young people aged 18 to 24 now say they believe in God, which is a huge increase because obviously during the pandemic and in times before that, there was a huge dip, even in Ireland, in our own church with young people. So it seems like young people are refinding God or actually now devoting themselves to religion in families that weren't religious at all.
So where's all this coming from?
A huge one, which experts say is Charlie Kirk, particularly in the States.
Right. Now this, not due to his assassination, but due to the power of his performances, I suppose, before that. Is that what it was? When he was on the campuses?
A lot of young people see him as a martyr.
Yeah.
So he died promoting faith.
Promoting Christianity, I suppose, and right-wing values and all of that.
Traditionalist values. Yeah. So a lot of people really found a correlation with that in their own lives and now see his death as a marker for them to find their faith. That he died sharing the views he believed in. So now it's their turn. They have been inspired by this. And they take it now, because he was working particularly on colleges in the ground. So a lot of people who might have seen him in a college but never really connected with it or had much interest, suddenly his name was everywhere. Videos of him were everywhere.
I'm almost conscious about Charlie Kirk. A lot of people don't really know what he was at. You're right. He would go onto a college campus, he would set himself up with a microphone, and he would allow people to debate with him, even when they had absolutely opposing views to that. He normally, tore them apart. He was such a...
Yeah, he annihilated them.
Right.
And a lot of times it got very, very heated with people who may not have even went to the college showing up, yeah. Just to debate him.
Trans was a big issue, wasn't it, that he debated all of the time?
A huge one, and especially on college grounds where there's a huge movement for accessibility and to be individual, accept
and
all.
Woke ideology and all of that.
You have a huge range of political values on a college campus.
Yeah, and he went to a lot of the very liberal campuses in the States and he took them on. And he was very impressive in terms of, well, I suppose how he performed, how he debated. Yeah,
and a lot of people now are actually learning Bible quotes. So a lot of young people will have a favourite Bible quote because he was able to quote the Bible off the top of his head. Yeah. Especially in Pentecostal areas in America, they learn the Bible by heart.
Yes.
You're expected to know all of the different quotes to be able to signify them and find a link within your life. So a lot of young people now you'll see with a quote in their bio. So on their social media, they'll have a favourite Bible quote.
All right, so this is happening in the States. Has it spread? Is it coming to Europe?
It's worldwide. They found in America there was that huge surge after Charlie Kirk's death. In England, they found that Bibles, the selling of Bibles has increased by 134% in value since 2019. That young people are buying Bibles. They're being sold out and they're then going online and sharing their journey with their first Bible and finding faith. So people who are producing Bibles, it's a huge market at the moment because people want physical Bibles and young people want to have a nice looking Bible, an expensive Bible. Colourful Bibles are in all of the bookshops.
Almost as an accessory though at that point, is it?
It's that idea of being able to share their journey online for a lot of them. Having a Bible. There's a lot of people who sit down in the evening, they video it, but they journal. So they read a certain number of passages from the Bible, highlight it, add stickers. It's not that idea of, okay, this is an invaluable object. Do not touch it. Read it. Treat it with the utmost respect. This is your personal item. Do whatever you need to do to get close to God, so highlight it.
Right, but they're delving into it and they're dissecting it.
Bring it in your handbag. Bring a highlighter. When you're in a coffee shop, read a passage, write notes in it, add little colourful tabs. This is an item that connects you to God, so use it as a personal item. That idea of maybe the church being something that's higher than everybody else and you have to work your way to deserve to be in there, that's kind of gone. It's really a focus now on in your daily life on a personal level connecting with God.
So a very personal God, I suppose, yeah. So this is not benefiting the likes of Catholicism then, is it?
Catholicism, for the first time in some of the states, it has increased.
Yes.
So there's more Catholics than Protestants, which was very unusual because a lot of different demographics had emigrated to America, like Lutherans, Pentecostal.
Of course, yeah.
So for the first time, Catholics are actually on the rise over there.
Wow. And again, this plays into the same conversation, does it?
Yeah, because it's growing. The communities are growing. In Northern Ireland at the moment, there's been a huge increase in church. Now, it's not Catholic, it's non-denominational. So they're popping up all over Ireland at the moment. They're in Northern Ireland, they're in Dublin, they're in Cork, they're in Offaly. This idea of you don't need to necessarily be in one type of church. So it doesn't matter if you're Catholic, Protestant, Lutheran, Pentecostal. Once you are a Christian, all the Christians meet together and leave the divides of religion outside.
And like Charlie Kirk, are there personalities emerging from this then who might be leaders or future leaders? Or
yeah, there's one specific social media influencer in Ireland. He goes by the name Ged, and he has been huge. Absolutely huge, because online he had been known as a very party animal, all these different parties, drinking, and he completely stripped his life back. He documented it all online. He met a lady, they lived separately before they got married. They got married quite quickly, maybe compared to other people, and within a few months now they're expecting their first child. And he has documented this whole process of turning his life around for God.
And so, but his relationship was a traditional one in that they didn't live together?
Completely traditional, did not live together until they were married. He was one of the instrumental people in that protest in Dublin, where the Christians walked through Dublin, and it was very, very small reporting done on it at the time. He was one of the key figures in that. And he's part of that idea of a non-denominational church. So they meet, it's a lot of young people who maybe were in that party atmosphere or social media that felt like they needed something in life, so have joined together and meet multiple times a week.
I don't mean to be disrespectful to younger people, but is there a danger that this is a fad typical of Gen Z, you know, that, okay, this is flavour of the month for now, but we'll move on to something else next week and the Bibles will be in the attic somewhere?
Now, it's very interesting because experts have actually tied it to similar ideas as Cllr Liam Browne was talking about this morning. So the reason why young people are reverting back to Christianity is due to what they'd see as an unstable world. They're feeling very unstable, a lot of global politics going on, housing crisis, finding it hard to find jobs, and they feel like they need one thing in their life that's stable. Another one is digital fatigue. So the idea of they're on social media all the time. So the church actually allows them a third party place where they can't have their phones. So it's a place that allows them to actually recharge, and they feel like they're reconnecting in those moments. Social media obviously in itself has a lot of influence, because if young people see other attractive young people online promoting religion, and they see someone that they think has the perfect life and is very centred in themselves and very confident, they're more likely then to be like, maybe I'll try this as well.
And then, is it inevitable that the fallout from that will be more support for conservative politics then, for example?
Oh, absolutely. And they say one of the leading factors in this is that people want to go back to more traditional lifestyles. They want to go back to that idea of a man meets woman, falls in love, gets married, which kind of contradicts the fact as well that marriage figures have fallen so low in recent years. There seems to be a push now again for people getting married much younger. A lot of the influencers are getting married at 21, 22, which would have been common maybe in the 90s and the 80s.
Yeah.
But at the moment, the age would have really been between 28 and 34. You were seeing people getting married.
Yeah, because as you say, a drop in marriage, I think it's 7 or 8%, isn't it, since 2014. And, of course, a drop in the amount of babies as well that's being born in this country as well. But are you saying that the change is happening as we speak? Is that?
Yeah, even in recent months. And it definitely did start in the States and has kind of moved, because obviously the States have a huge reach on social media. We see all their content where they probably don't see ours. But that idea, you're seeing more and more, particularly young men going back to the church, and particularly young men looking for that idea of a more traditionalist marriage and lifestyle. So it seems they want to meet people within the church with similar values, court, as they would have said in times gone by, and settle down and have a family and feel like they have that security.
I'm sure this will be a great surprise to an awful lot of people listening to us this morning.
Yeah, and I've been talking to priests from even around Tipperary, and they have said in recent months they've found a huge increase in the number of young people attending Mass, even outside of the special occasions like Easter and Christmas, where you generally do see an increase anyway. But a lot more are noticing it within their own churches that young people, particularly in their late teens, early 20s, are finding their way back to church.
And in your own circle of friends, is that evident?
I think what I found is I would be very religious, but I wouldn't necessarily follow the protocols and idea of organised religion. But a lot of young people are now questioning. People I would know who never had any interest in faith have seen maybe an influencer or a sports star. It's huge in MMA and boxing. They really have increased this with the tattoos of crosses, wearing crosses, going into the ring, blessing themselves after a match and before. They're starting to wonder, well, is there a place for me in this? It's not something they've ever looked at before, but suddenly they have questions and are curious to know more.
I'm fascinated by it. My concern is that, it's faddish, like some of the other stuff we discuss, and then move on to something else in a while. But for now, it's pretty strong.
It's very, very strong. But I think the danger comes in when it's strongly Bible-based. Because as you see in many groups that may have not always worked out very well, the Bible can be interpreted in many different ways.
So if there's a very fundamental interpretation, you have some concerns about that, do you?
It's when people are allowed to interpret themselves and find a place in their own life seems to be very positive. But when it gets very, these are the words you follow exactly, that's where it does trying to get tight around the belt again, and people tend to move away quickly. So it really depends on how the different groups approach it.
So we're looking for people to talk to us about this, Leanne. I guess maybe people who might have, experienced what you've been talking about and decided to go back and restudy the vibe, or maybe study it for the first time and what they're getting from it.
Yeah, they call it the road to Damascus moment.
Yeah.
So we want to know if people have had that, if they had something happen in their lives that they suddenly felt an urge or a call to go back to faith, or if they found faith completely regardless of the religion as well, because a lot of people do change religion and find another one that suits them more.
Yeah, interesting. All right, well, talk to Leanne for free on that free phone number, 1800 938 007. Thanks very much indeed for that, Leanne. News and information's coming up.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tip Today on 1800 938 007. Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the final hour of Tip Today. Let's do this.
Legal discussion on Tip Today is brought to you in association with Lynch Solicitors Clonmel, on the web at lynchsolicitors.ie and at divorceineireland.com.
John Lynch is with me in studio. Morning, John.
Good morning. Happy New Year to you.
Many happy returns to you. Had you a nice Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
And all of that?
Yeah. As they say, I got over the Christmas.
I got over it. Like it was an obstacle or something like that. That's great.
But I always think it's always funny to see people queuing up, to buy whatever it is they're buying in the supermarkets, and like you'd think the world was ending or something, and then are the people, queuing up with loads of drink coming out, and then the following day they're into the pub.
Does that not come from years ago though, when the shops did close for a week or so? Anyway, there you go. New Year's resolutions, John. But
I was trying to think how many years have I been doing New Year's resolutions, but a fairly long time.
We normally don't finish them until about March.
No, we normally don't finish them until Well, yourself, they're full year resolutions.
Yeah.
But it's the standard ones, and the one that always is top of the list, is future planning. And when I say future planning, we never know what's going to happen. And, one of the saddest things I find around Christmas or before Christmas, my father used to say it, when the leaves are falling, people move on, pass on, and the amount of people that still don't anticipate the most obvious thing and the most predictable thing in your life is that it is going to end at some stage. And I mean, there's two elements to it. Yes, it could end, but there, along the way, heading towards the exit, there can be an awful lot of complications. And you know, we've talked about it over and repeatedly over the years. You know, if you don't plan it, it's certainly never going to happen the way you might like it to happen. So the starting point is that set of future planning that you do, which is and it's probably not your starting point, as in the will, I think, is the last one. I think you work back and you start with, well, okay, I know I'm going to go at some stage, but what happens if towards the end or at any point I'm not able to look after myself? What do I do and what can I do about that? And the answer to that is that thankfully over the last number of years they've added a number of tools that are available to people. And the first one that they introduced in 1996 and amended again in 2015 was the enduring power of attorney. And the enduring power of attorney effectively is a pre-plan in case you can't look after yourself and you need somebody else to do it for you. You need them to make decisions for you. And the question, of course, is they could be decisions about your health, about where you live. There could be decisions about your money. There could be decisions about looking after a business that you might be involved in. There could be anything. It depends. Yes. Obviously, each circumstance is different. And the enduring power of attorney is a document or a mechanism whereby in advance of that happening, you think it out and say, well, okay, who would I like to look after me in terms of, you know, where do I live? You know, what are my day-to-day care requirements? Who would know about that? And who would I like to go and look after and do that for me? So you name them in advance, and they're your attorneys effectively. So they do that, and then you think and you say, well, okay, who do I want to look after my money and look after my pension if it's coming in, or look after whatever? Who do I want to do that? And you nominate them, and then when you
John, do you discuss with them?
Yeah.
Do you make sure that they're up for this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's an absolute key requirement. I think it can cause all sorts of difficulties. The same as anything that you do, Fran. Whether you're doing a will, you're doing a cohabitation agreement, whether you're doing a contract, whether you're doing a business contract, whether you're doing a personal contract, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It obviously pays to have that discussion, well, with yourself, with your advisors, and with the people that you're going to ask to do it for you. Because many a time somebody gets appointed as an attorney and or as an executor or as a trustee who kind of goes, what the hell is going on? What am I supposed to do here? And you know, and it's an owner's duty, you see. It's not an easy one sometimes. Yes. And just to follow up on that, the mechanism now that's out there, because of circumstances that can arise where there can be undue influence, worst case scenario, elder abuse. In that scenario, you now have an oversight mechanism now that's there in the Decision Support Service, which is a body that was set up under the 2015 Act, which is the Assisted Decision Making Act. But this body now is an overseeing body. It used to be the court, and by the way, the court is still there. You know, the court is your last recourse, effectively. But the Decision Support Service now takes a very inquisitional role in terms of ensuring that people carry out these duties. So your question is absolutely spot on. You should have the discussion with somebody, because not only should they know what the job is, but they should also be very well aware of what your preferences are, what your will, what you want to happen. And you can't expect people to read your mind. And even if they could read your mind, the difficulty that I often see is that when you don't have a detailed discussion about it, you can actually misunderstand as the person who's going to be appointed or as the person who's appointing, you can actually have a lack of understanding between the two parties.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought this is what you wanted, or I thought whatever. So yes, absolutely right that you should do that. But and an aside to that is that the whole process of an enduring power of attorney has been changed, and certainly in our case in Lynch Solicitors, not a lot of firms are doing it at the moment, but we've kind of come up with a workaround that will, in other words, there's no reason why people can't actually do it at this point in time. There might be a lot of questions about how difficult it is to do it online, but I think there are workarounds to it. And
should you do it at the same time as you're making a will, or?
I think it's all part of the same process,
yes.
Fran.
Yeah.
Because the other thing to remember as well is that you're doing it at this point in time, but a little bit like everything else, things change.
Yeah.
And you've got to, funny, this is the start of the year, and at the start of every year we have a closed week. We close for the week in January, because what we do is we take an opportunity to review things, to look at our systems. And one of the things that we do review is our wills. And you'd be amazed that even though you might do it every year, you'd be amazed that each year when you do it, suddenly, so-and-so hasn't been in to review the will, or you check and find that in fact they've died in the meantime or whatever. And it absolutely emphasises the fact that if you have a will sitting there for 20 years, it could be out of date. In fact, 9 times out of 10 it is out of date, because an awful lot of people come in, at different things trigger making wills. People often make wills when they buy property. They often make wills when they marry. In fact, you have to make a new will when you marry, unless you make a will in anticipation of your marriage. The marriage nullifies it, so you've got to redo the will after. You should always.
It nullifies it completely, does it?
Yeah,
What?
unless it's done in anticipation of marriage.
That's very interesting. I didn't realise that.
Yeah. But, you buy a house, you have children, and people will often, when they have children, they will change their will again. But then forget that often those wills are designed to look after the children by appointing guardians or trustees, or allowing them to have assets at a certain stage of their life. But in the intervening period, however many years later, and by God do those years go fast, suddenly all those children are grown up. So there's no point in a trust. So the will needs to be updated. And you can have all sorts of, look, there is no family that won't have a change of circumstances.
Yeah.
And, you really, I would always say to everybody, New Year's resolution, and, you were slagging me about how long we can be talking about it, but at any point in time, whatever about, if there's a life event or not, it's always a good idea to say, how up to date is my will? How up to date has anything changed, and should I go and change it? And the answer is yes, you should.
But you and I have been speaking for I don't know how many years at this point. It was only last year, 2025, I finally got around to it, and I kept putting it off. And I often question myself as to why I was putting it off. And what is it about confronting mortality or something? I don't know. Is it just laziness?
Funny, I asked myself the question. I often have these. I was thinking of the movie Road to Perdition, and I don't know why that came into my mind, but I was thinking of the road to Damascus. You remember your man came off the horse, or whatever it was, whatever he was
Paul,
on.
Was it? Yeah.
It was Paul, yeah. But I often have these moments of thought when I'm on the bike, when I'm cycling along, and thought drift into your head. And I was just trying to think about, why is it when we get older do we think that time moves faster? Because obviously time doesn't move. It's an abstract thing, time. We created time in order to make some sort of sense of the world. And I was trying to work it out. And I was thinking that, the problem is that if you fill your time to such an extent that you have so many things in it, it goes really, really fast because you're constantly moving. But if you actually live in the moment that you're in, like I'm now doing a radio show, you're now hopefully listening to me. If you live in that moment as opposed to trying to move into the next one, you might slow it down. So that's my theory for the new year. But on the will one, I remember thinking I was thinking, it's the fact, the same idea that as a younger age, as you get older, a lot of older people make wills because they realise their mortality. Yes. Whereas when you're young, you think, wow, sure, there's an expanse of time in front of me. Yeah. So I think it's more to do with that than a reluctance to do it. Yeah. Because I often find with younger people, whatever that means, if you say, will you do a will, never a problem. They do it straight away. If somebody's doing, like if somebody comes into us and they're doing a house sale or doing a house purchase or whatever, they'll always come in and do it. And the other one is when they're going on planes. I often thought if I had to stand at Dublin Airport,
you would do extremely well.
I could do a great job.
If I'm coming into John Lynch and his team and I want to look at a will and maybe enduring power of attorney as well, the homework that I must do then, John, is what? What do I need to present with myself to you?
Well, first of all, and this is, I'm not going to answer this question if you ask me how much is it going to cost, because the fact of the matter is that you've probably hit another kind of discussion point. In order to make a will is a process. It's a thinking process. You know, people think you can come in, do the will, walk out the door and that's it. And it takes 3, 4, 5 consultations with Lynch Solicitors team to get to the point where everybody's satisfied, i.e. from a legal point of view you're happy, you've covered all the bases. From the client point of view, they've covered all the bases. Don't expect it to be a fast, quick exercise. It's not. Yeah. It's a kind of a thought out process where you come in, well, can I do this? Could I do that? What if I do this? And many is a time over the years, you're going through this process and the client will say, well, what do you think, John? What do you think I should do here? And that's indicative of a cooperative approach between you and the client, that you know the client, you know their circumstances, but you have to know their circumstances in order to advise them. And it's not so much that you're telling them what to do, you're offering an opinion based on shared information. And the key here is you think, but to start the process, you have to understand the process. To understand the process, you have to talk about it. To talk about it, you understand. And when you understand it, you've got to talk to other people about it. And back to your very critical point, discussion. Do you talk to your family about it? Do you talk to your children about it? Do you talk to the people you're going to appoint as executors about it? Do you talk to your accountant about it? Do you talk to your solicitor about it? Yes. To all of the above. So don't think a bit like the gym, It doesn't work for the first 2 or 3 goes. You have to go for a while.
And that's what we discovered. Yeah. Now, a bit like everything else in my life, I'm a pain in the ass. So I was kind of over-prepared. I didn't realise that you didn't need, insurance numbers and account numbers.
You do.
When you're actually making the will itself.
Well, you do insofar as if you have all that information. So let's stay with that just for a second. The more information you have, the better. Now, and I don't mean with a view... From my point of view, if I'm looking at your scenario, you see, making the will isn't just the will. There's the enduring power of attorney and there's the succession planning. There's the tax. There's what's the optimum way to do it. Now, for me to have a look at that, I got to understand all that. And I got to have that information. So if you were saying I've got to... Now, the number on your pension obviously isn't what's critical. It's what the pension is.
Yes.
And what type of pension it is and how the payment out works. Do you know what I mean? So
right. Sorry, I was just talking about a basic will, not an enduring power of attorney.
Yeah, but you see, no, but that applies in a will as well. You see, I don't think, when you talk about, I'm going to slag you now when you say basic will, because you see, basic will to me doesn't mean a huge amount.
Right.
Because what you're saying is, I leave everything to my wife and then I leave everything with my kids. Sure, that's basically, well, sure, anybody can do that. Of course they can. But that's not the process. In order to understand, is that the right thing to do? Are there any special needs requirements? Are there tax implications? Should you be transferring it now? Should you be transferring it in your will, or what? That's succession planning. Making a will is only one part of succession planning. It makes up literally the will is the final document. The process is what you go through in order to get there. And in order to get there, you got to understand. So if somebody comes in, they've got special needs, either children or special needs per se, so there's all of those, none of which you're able to say anything about until you get the information. So I think you need never be worried about having too much information.
Yeah.
Because even take it that something happens to you. The ideal scenario is somebody is able to go into your solicitor and you have every piece of information that's required in order to do the administration of your estate. And the more information you give,
the better. The
easier it is for them to find it, number one, because the amount of times, and it brings me in mind of my earliest days when a widow came in to me and said that the husband suffered from dementia or something, but he used to wander off, and he had this fixation in his head that everybody was trying to take his money, including the tax man, which of course is a fixation we all have. but not to be too flippant about the poor man, but he used to get in the bus and disappear. She never knew where he went.
Almighty.
And he'd bring cash that he had hidden in a safe in the house, and she couldn't manage him. But he went all over the place, lodging money in different accounts, in different building societies, banks, whatever. The only way she could track it is that sometimes she found the deposit slips. So we had to write to all of the institutions, asking them about whether they held, and she was able to kind of guess that he might have gone to Cork, he might have gone to Limerick, and he went to Dublin, for example. And to give you an example, she says he definitely went to Dublin. I remember he went to Dublin, and don't ask me, I can't remember why. And she had pinpointed where she thought he went to. Anyway, we wrote and they said they had nothing. Now, we found out later, because we got a slip, that in fact it was lodged there.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So, straight answer is no. You absolutely, same way as, I mean, this is you, none of us are perfect, but certainly having the information available to you. But as I said to you, the will is only part of the process. It's the result document from the process of making the will. The enduring power of attorney, same process is involved in that. And the other one that, as I was saying to you last year, that has come into the mix is the Advanced Healthcare Directive. And the Advanced Healthcare Directive is a very specific directed document that deals with your wishes in the event of end of life or otherwise, where you have very specific instructions as to what you want to happen. And again, that brings me in mind of a client of mine who was making a will, who knew they were going to, the end was nigh. They were told they only had months to live or whatever. And I mean, in that particular instance, they were very specific about what treatment options they did and what treatment options they didn't want. So they were able at that point in time to do an Advanced Healthcare Directive that was a document, and they also were able to appoint somebody who would be their care representative, who was specifically mandated to ensure that if they got hospitalised, this is what was going to happen, this was what was not going to happen. And they were very specific about it.
Do you find as well, John, that there's a peace of mind that people have when they have all of this done? Because it's always at the back of your mind when you don't have it.
Yeah, but you're always worried. Like, you're always concerned, the what if scenario.
Sure.
And maybe, just maybe, going back to your question as to why people are reluctant, maybe people might be reluctant to do it, because to a certain extent, they're afraid to deal with it or to acknowledge, the fact that these are the realities of life,
Yeah, and what is that, as you say, when you have to have discussion with family as well? Maybe that's another reason why people...
Well, and the interesting thing about that, as an aside to that, is that under the enduring power of attorney mechanism that they have now, through the DSS, you have to notify family. And I've had people coming into me going, I've had a falling out with so-and-so. I do not want them to know my personal affairs on my, and I've been asked, well, how do you deal with that? Well, I said the way you deal with it is you sidestep it. You don't do an enduring power of attorney in the straight way. You do an affidavit that sets out what your instructions are, and if it arises, then I'm in a position to make an application to the court and set up your wishes, and then it's made by court order rather than by document. Because, you see, there are 3 levels to assistance that you may require, and it kind of scales up. The lower level is somebody to help you make decisions. In other words, somebody that works with you. They don't actually make the decisions for you, but they help you to make them. Then the next step up is somebody who makes decisions with you, which is they're a co-decision maker, so they're part of the decision-making process. And then you step up from there and you've got a court-appointed person, a representative. So they're the 3 steps, and the attorney... appointing an attorney is a document that creates the appointment of somebody who does that, as in does what the court would do. So there's always the option, if you don't have to reassure people, if because of, hopefully they'll make the system a little bit easier, and I better be careful what I say about that, but the reality of it is that, people say to me, what happens if I don't have it? What can I do? Well, the answer is, if you set out your instructions, you do an affidavit, you do a legal document that swears what you want, who you want appointed, what you want appointed to do, then it's a question of an application to the Circuit Court to appoint somebody who you've already nominated.
All right, okay, so give yourself that as a task, I guess, this year. That's
absolutely.
The advice. All right.
If I haven't put people off.
Not the least. John, a pleasure as always. Thanks very much indeed. John Lynch of Lynch Solicitors in Clonmel. We'll take a break, back in just a moment.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long-wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Tip Today. Frank in Thurles was on to say, did you ever hear the song My Attorney Bernie, Fran? Look it up. I didn't, but I certainly must do that. A really interesting question in from one of our listeners, and we'll ask John to tease this out for us next time he's with us. Somebody wondering about the tax implication if you are buying a small amount of land from your parents. It's kind of an interesting one. We'll ask John to figure that out for us. Now, on Friday last, when we were broadcasting from Nina, Leanne left some listeners horrified when we took a deep dive into the world of piercings and body modifications. Well, Matt was in touch to share his own piercing experience, and he joins me now. Matt, good morning to you. Good, lovely to talk to you, Matt. So, will you tell me about you? You have a lot of piercings, have you not?
I never would have characterised it that way until I was sort of listening in the mouth early on, and I realised maybe I kind of do.
Yeah. Can you remember your first?
The first time I actually got my ears pierced back in the late 90s. And I was dating a woman who really thought that piercings on men were a great thing. And so I credit her with sort of getting the ball rolling there.
Right. And is it a case that the bug bit, so to speak, a bit like the tattoos? Did it go on from there that you desired more piercings?
I kind of did, yeah. It started off with, it was something that I did because she liked the look of it and I liked the look of her, so that works out well. But, from that point forward, there's sort of I have a couple of tattoos as well, but I'm much more limited in my tattoos. One of the things that I prefer about piercing over tattoos is that, except in, some more extreme body modifications, it's easy to remove a piercing. And so you can kind of go back to the way it was, whereas a tattoo is much more difficult to either remove or cover up. And so I reserve tattooing for those things that are, have special significance in my life. Whereas the piercings are something I can do, try it out for a while, see if I like it. If I don't, I take it out, and I'm no worse the wear.
Will you run us through the various piercings? Because some of the language around this I don't even understand. But let's start with the ears. How many ears piercings have you?
I have 3 holes in each lobe, so that's 6 total, so 3 pairs. And then they have identified like 20 different parts of the ear, and I don't even know them all myself. But I have one on my left ear that's called they call it the helix. And basically, it's that outer fold that sort of wraps around at the top outside of the ear. And so there's a small ring that I wear there. There is something, and I don't properly know how to pronounce it, is D-A-I-T-H. So I'm told it's pronounced Doth or Doth or something like that. And that is sort of the interior portion that wraps around down the front of the ear and, sort of funnels in towards the ear canal. And on the inside there, you can get I have 2 rings that are put into that area, so they sort of sit flat inside the ear. And then the ones that I like most aesthetically are called the tragus, and that is that little flap of cartilage that comes down in front of the ear canal, sort of protects it from debris and all that. And those are very small, they're, although some of them are extremely expensive, but they're, they just have it adds I don't know what word to use, a little bit of sparklight, if you will.
For sure.
Without being ostentatious or gaudy. And one of the things that I like about the way I've done my ears is that everything is sort of, until you really look at me, you don't kind of notice it. You might see a little flash here and there, but for the most part, it's compatible with business. I work in cybersecurity. I've been doing that for 25 years, and so I've been very careful that I can always have a business look. So I'm a musician, so I have very long hair, and I always make sure I wear a flat cap as a matter of course, and so I always tuck it under that. So I always make sure that I like a man was saying earlier, wearing the long sleeves. I always make certain that it's not intrusive on anyone who might be bothered by it.
Interesting indeed. So subtlety is important to you, obviously. Where the tragus is concerned, that little piece, as you say, on the outside of it, I would imagine that's very painful to get pierced, is it? From my understanding is that it is a very, very personal, it depends on your threshold for pain and how many nerve endings you have and that sort of thing. I found them almost a non-event when it came to the actual piercing itself. It sounded worse than it felt because it has to actually go through the cartilage. But as far as it goes, I had very, very little pain during the piercing or residually afterwards. I think the only time you really get proper pain in that sort of thing, at least I do, is when if something were to get infected or, get irritated, by improper jewelry or something along those lines. You have your tongue pierced? I do, yes. Ouch. Again, that was, and this is entirely, my own personal perspective. I didn't find it all that painful. This happened in my 20s, so it's going on a long time now. But it happens between the muscles. There are 2 muscles in the tongue, and so it actually goes between them. And so it's just going through the fleshy part. The worst part of the tongue piercing, in my estimation, was for about 3 or 4 days afterward, when there was a significant amount of swelling, but that was more irritating than anything else. Right, and you pierced that with what? Is it one of these little sort of spherical things, a little ball thing? So the term is a barbell for anything that is a straight piercing. And with a ball on either end, a ring. They call them a CBR or a captive bead ring.
is the other major type, where there's actually a ring with a that has a friction, a tension hold on the ball between. So when I do wear a tongue ring these days, it is a barbell with a ball on top and bottom.
All right. And when you say when you do, so you take it out sometimes?
Yeah. In fact, I'm not wearing it at the minute. Once you get to a certain time period, usually a year to 2 years after the initial piercing, a lot of times it's possible to take the piercings out for a limited time. I wouldn't go a week without it, but I don't need to wear it every day, so I can take that for business meetings, etc., etc.
Right. Now let's get to the nitty gritty here. You have both nipples pierced.
I do.
Oh, my
God,
Matt.
I credit that same partner for that one. It was something that she found very exciting. And that was by far, that was more painful than all of the rest of them combined.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm trying not to get too racy for the radio here, but it turns out have particular sensitivity in that area to begin with. And so, for about a month after the piercing, there's multiple times a day you do a saltwater wash. You make certain that you keep it clean, and it was throbbing pain for several weeks. That said, once it healed, it was a magnification in sensitivity.
Wow.
And I've had them for half my life now, and I will say that if I had to redo it once a year, I would still do it for the benefit of the sensitivity.
Would you indeed? So are we talking
really
about
would.
erotic sensitivity here? Is that?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. It's actually, I don't know how I can say it. It's friendly for the radio, so I'll leave it to your imagination.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, I could imagine that would be the case with women, but I didn't realise that it would have that sort of an effect in men, Matt, for some reason.
I was similarly surprised.
Yeah.
I was at the time I was good giving in game, and so I was happy to accommodate her to try it out at least, and I'm very, very glad that I did. But it was very, very much a surprise to it's basically it's like having an on button somewhere on your body that you didn't know existed.
There's going to be queues outside of piercing shops. I might be first in the queue myself. You never know. You have the belly button pierced as well.
I do, and that was it was a bit of a cheeky. I felt unbalanced having the tongue and the nipples pierced, but not the navel.
Yes,
and there was a bit of a cheeky nod to growing up Catholic. Because it's actually, it does sort of form the sign of the cross for me. And I try not to be, heretical or blasphemous when I'm saying this. It's in a respectful way.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a way to pay homage to my Catholicism in doing so.
Isn't that very interesting indeed? Dare I ask, because Leanne brought this up with us as well, not me, the notion of the penis and the Prince Albert and all of that. Did that ever sort of strike you? I might have a shot at that, no?
My boys are fine the way they are, and I do not need any modification.
And nobody's coming near them with a knife or whatever. Yeah. I like that. Did you give me the impression earlier on when you were speaking about the piercings in your ears that you spend a few bob on the jewellery, so to speak?
It is surprising how much of an addiction that can be. There have been times because it opens up a whole new world of possibility, and I think that I have a little bit more respect now for women and shoes than I might have otherwise.
Yes.
Because you find that you can accessorize, and it's a very, very subtle way that you can sort of up your look in a way that people don't necessarily clock that that's what's happening. But it can actually make you, and I need all the help I can get. So it's a way to make you look a little bit more put together, and a way to add some subtle style that doesn't. But like I said, it can get out of hand. It'll break the bank if you let it.
It's very interesting. Do people make up? I mean, I know that you're particularly subtle about it, and if it involves a meeting or such, I guess you modify. But do people make up their minds about you or about aspects of you when they see the jewellery and the piercings, do you think?
For the most part, I think that people have either been too frightened or too polite to say so. I'm 6'3" and form strong, as they say. So they don't. They tend not to make wayward comments when I'm around.
Yes.
I can't say what they say after the fact, but I've got enough other quirks in my personality. They've got plenty of talking points as it is.
It's so interesting to talk to you. Can you understand, because I can't, we did the whole tattoo thing as a kind of a once-off, a kind of a light after Christmas item, but it exploded in terms of people's interest in this, and it appears to be the same now with the piercings. Does that surprise you, Matt?
It really doesn't. I think that there is, but part of it is the sort of the taboo nature of it, right? So that there is always there's always something to something that used to be forbidden or still seems a little bit, I wouldn't have been able to do that when I was young, that sort of thing. But there is tattoos and piercings both have a history that is longer than humans had writing.
Yeah.
So we know that this goes back, tens of thousands of years. And so there is a deep connection between the body and treating it as a temple or a piece of art or something that I am exerting control over as I inhabit it. And it is a way to make yourself so unique and so individual that it doesn't really surprise me at all. I don't know that I would have predicted it, especially in Ireland. But at the same time, looking back on it now, I think that it makes a lot of sense because it connects with something very deep, very primal, and very core within us.
Fascinating conversation. Matt, I really appreciate you coming on and speaking so openly about your nipples, among other things. But a real pleasure. Matt, thank you so much and a Happy New Year to you.
Likewise,
thank you.
Fran. All the years that I've been listening to you and all the topics that I thought it would be interesting to talk to you about, this never crossed my mind.
Well, look, I hope you'll talk to me about other topics as well, but it'll always be at the back of my mind that you have your nipples pierced, Matt.
Thank you so much.
Matt. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. That's Matt speaking to us there. Lovely conversation. We'll take a break back in just a moment.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tip Today on 1-800-938-007.
Listeners jumping on the bandwagon here along with Leanne saying Fran has to get a piercing. There is no, I can tell you this absolutely now, there is no way in the world that I'm getting a piercing anywhere, anytime. Okay, can we be quite clear on that? Christine is with me. Good morning, Christine.
Good morning, Fran. Come on now and get your ear pierced or something. Be a man.
Can you imagine the way I'd look at this age now with getting piercings? I don't know. You have tattoos, Christine?
Covered in them, Fran.
Covered in them, are you?
Yeah, I have. I can't even count how many I have now. I've lost count.
Go away. Can you remember your first one?
I can, yeah. It was on the side of my hand. It's stars. It's 6 stars, and it symbolises family from my mum, my dad, my 2 sisters, and my brother and me.
And what age were you when you had that done?
Can I say on air that I was like extremely underage? I think I was like 14 or something.
Go on. And what did you get it done without parental permission, Christine, or?
Oh no, I did the whole playing my mother off my father type thing. I was that teenager and I was like, oh well, Mum said I'm not allowed to get it done, or Dad said I'm not allowed to get it done. So I actually went to my brother was going to get one. I went into my brother and I came home and I was like, yeah, it'll fade after a while, and still have it to this day.
And when you describe yourself as covered in them now, I'm like, tell me about that.
I can hide the majority of them. Like, I have one on the back of my hand that obviously I can't hide, and one on the side of my hand that I can't hide. But like the rest of them, you wouldn't know I'm heavily tattooed once I have a pants and a long top on me, like.
Right, and is that deliberate, that at times you want to cover them up?
No, I love my tattoos, but I wish that I wasn't so young getting them and thought more through it and looked at better designs and I went to one tattoo artist for the lower end of my back. They have a certain name to them to have a lower end of your back tattoo. I won't say on air, but I got that done and it's completely crooked, and that's the only tattoo that I'd love to cover, but I couldn't bear it at this stage of my life because I'm gone way past the stage of belly tops now, let me tell you.
And where else have you got them? But as you say, you can cover up. So we're talking about your arms here, and what about on your torso?
My foot, this side of my thigh, the lower end of my back, my two arms, my finger, my chest.
Wow.
One of my shoulder blade on my back. I'm trying to think where else. I have nearly a full sleeve done. And I have one for my son as well, but I just found out at Christmas that I'm pregnant, so I'm going to have another baby.
Oh, many congratulations to you.
Thank you. So Mum was just like, well, you've only two arms, so you may find somewhere else now for this baby.
And so you have a mixture. So some of them have very special meaning for you, Christine, and what? Others are just you.
Of them, yeah.
Yeah. And besides your child, then what else would have mening that you have?
I have one for the one on my back. It says R.I.P. Nana, but it looks awful, especially where it's placed. I don't know what I was thinking like. But I have me and my partner's fingerprints in a love heart on my shoulder blade and our initials underneath it.
Right.
And I'm like, if he ever commits a crime, I have a permanent engrave for his fingerprints, so he won't be getting away with it. So I have, my son's footprints on my arm, the time he was born on a clock, his heart trace, and his date of birth. I have Mum and Dad on my wrists. I have a lion then on my thigh. I have a lily on my foot. I love flowers, but I'm allergic to them, so I can't actually have them in the house. I break out very bad, my hay fever and stuff. So I have quite a few roses on my arms and a lily on my foot. I'm like, okay, I can't buy myself flowers, but I can buy myself a tattoo of a flower.
It's lovely. And as I said to Matt there earlier on, are you surprised at the huge amount of interest in the item that we initially did about this, Christine?
Yeah, but like it's the cost of tattoos nowadays. Like when I got tattoos before, Fran, they weren't as expensive. Like nowadays, everything has gone up, and even like I used, like as grown up when I was a teenager, I had my few pound put aside. I was able to afford. I have two on my hips as well. I have Kelly Clarkson's song, "What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger," and Miley Cyrus's song, "Butterfly Fly Away" at the other side. They're two songs that are really important to me.
Yeah.
So I have them as well. And it's just like, I went into town, I think the two of them like cost me €60 that day in town, because I went into town, my mum gave me money as a teenager to go in shopping, and when I came home she was like, okay, you've no shopping bags with you, so what tattoo did you get?
So she knew. I would imagine you get very little for £60 or €60 now.
You wouldn't know. No, I don't think they'd even open the needle for you now for less than 100, I'd say.
Yeah, because I was looking, well, one of the contributors I was talking to showed me a picture of Michael Collins on his upper arm, and that was about €900. You know,
yeah, so. I mean, the price of them. I mean, I got one off of a top tattoo artist in Limerick. Christie's is her name. She's a lovely, lovely girl. She's really well out there, like, and she'd be one of the top tattoo artists that I'd know from town. And she only charged me, I think that was the most expensive one, at $350.
Right.
And I think I paid $350 for that. It's a huge lion's head with all like flowers and stuff around it. So it's because, like, when I suffered from depression and stuff like that, I was like, oh, everyone kept telling me, like, you know, you've the face of a lion inside and you keep going. I was just like, okay, well, everyone keeps saying I have the face of a lion in me, I may get a lion.
Well, fair play. Isn't that lovely?
So kind of like when I go back to, like, you know, feeling that depression and stuff, I'm just like, no, I have my lion there and I stay fighting.
Well, you should stay fighting because God knows it's been a tough journey for you along the way. I know, Christine. The advice you give to people, though, I guess, about tattoos is think it through carefully, would you?
Absolutely, yeah. My niece now got her first tattoo there recently, and it's a nice tattoo. It's small, it's dainty, and I'm just like, please. Now, she's way more sensible than I ever was, even at her young age. She's way more sensible, so she won't follow down the route I did, but, she just says she does love tattoos, but she just said, no, she said, I won't be like you.
Oh, thanks very much, says you. But people need to think it through, think about the image, and maybe think about the long-term effect as well,
But you see, I think that day and age, Fran, is kind of gone, where it's just I know when I was in youth reach in LYS and I was in Nina CTC and places like that, a lot of our educators had tattoos and stuff like that. So it's kind of more common. I worked in healthcare, and obviously I have tattoos, and it used to keep the dementia patients inside in the place where I worked. They used to actually lots of them used to sit down and with their finger, it used to calm them and just draw over my tattoos, and they'd sit down, then they'd want a marker to colour in my tattoos and stuff like that, and I'd be like, yeah, work away, whatever keeps you quiet and gets me through the next 12 hours, I don't mind what you do. So it was actually it was quite, and now a few of them didn't like him at all, and I'm just like, it's okay, I'm like, they didn't hurt and stuff like that, and it's quite an interesting conversation to have with the older generation, because back in their day, obviously they didn't have, none of them really got tattoos, but an awful lot of people used to love when I'd sit down beside them and they'd go over, say I have a rose on the back of my hand, they used to love drawing over that rose. I used to come home nearly every evening with my rose coloured in.
Isn't that lovely, though? Christine, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us, and I wish you well with the baby. When are you due? When are you due, Christine?
Not till August, please God, not till August, friend. So, yeah.
Well, we wish you the very best, Christine. The very best of luck to you,
Thank you so much, Fran. Happy New Year to you.
And to you as well. Thanks, Christine. That's it for me. Leanne produced, Ali looks after content. Stephen has the time tunnel on the lunchtime show. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Look after yourselves, won't you? Bye-bye.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.